Hello, and welcome back to Generic Sports Podcast. I'm your host, the Goose, Josh.
And I'm John.
And over the last, we're in week 19 now, the
Yep.
wild card. We've been going through and discussing the games, and we will do that with you this week. It will be a bit shorter of an episode, but we do plan to get you a review of our predictions, and we will be talking in a future episode about the coaching situations in the NFL. But to start, we'll go with the worst game of the week for John. It was actually the only really game when you really think about it, because it was the Dolphins at the Chiefs. We knew it was going to be cold. The Dolphins were banged up. They fought on defense, but it was just it's not a game that a lot of people play in that weather. They don't live there. It's not a normal thing, and I heard like 15 people were in the hospital for frostbite after the game too. So I don't know how
it was stupid. It was stupid to play.
It was. I don't know how many. I don't know if there was more, but I'll have to look into it. But if you want to share your thoughts on that one,
I was going to say that that's cold about how you made it feel because of how cold it was there. But yeah. So yeah, they should have changed the game because of the freezing temperatures, just because of player and fan safety. I don't know if they care about fan safety, but that's a whole nother question. But yeah, it didn't help that last week we lost two more pass rushers than that we signed them off the street the defense held up. It was the offense that had the issue. It was the offense that had the issues, and I don't know if it was Tua had to overcompensate for how hard the ball was, or we just dropped the ball just the last few weeks. We were just kind of messed up like the Eagles, and
you kind of I don't want to say you coasted in, because coasted means like maybe you won, you lost, you won, you lost. I feel like you and the Eagles kind of were like dispirited, like there was something missing, and for you it was injuries.
It was injuries. I don't know what some other teams' reasons are.
We will talk more about the Eagles in a moment, but let's focus on the Dolphins and their problems.
Yeah, so I mean, the Chiefs' defense was good, like their run defense, which was middle of the road, like everyone was saying, just run the ball on them, and they stopped us running the ball. So, and I mean, the one good play was the touchdown Tyreek made, and we just couldn't do that again.
Right? I don't really remember hearing Jalen Waddle like that. That's the problem, is like he's coming off injury. I mean, Mostert was coming off injury, so it's like, I mean, I think I would have, I don't know. I think I would have tried a little more fancier, I guess some wild plays, maybe a wildcat play here or there, some end arounds, just trying to get Tyreek more involved in the game. Same thing with Jalen Waddle too. Like I think I would have done some of those involving him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the trick plays really would have helped, but I don't really like their offense. Like, I know we held them to field goals, but like we couldn't rush the passer because our key defenders, pass rushers were all injured. Xavier Howard didn't play. Eli Apple had some issues. Gator Coho was not like how he was last season. So like our defense was good, but was injured and just some play, and we had players that we really didn't need playing there. Jalen Ramsey was fine. I don't think they ever threw it in his direction. So if that side's shut down, yeah, we need better players on the other sides. They are throwing it too,
right?
But it was, it sucks to not have won a playoff game. But we made the playoffs 2 back-to-back years, and I don't know how many. I mean, I don't remember the last time that happened for Miami.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I think Marino was the quarterback. So
yeah, I have to imagine that.
So if we can, we just need to get better. Get healthier, get better, and maybe change the strength and conditioning coach with all those injuries. I don't know.
Well, I personally, I thought I could have seen Mike McDaniel get fired. I don't know if Tua is the answer, but this is really going to be their last year, and culture-wise and everything, I think Mike McDaniel is going to be safe. But it's really hard to tell, because I mean, he did good with Tua, but I don't know what they're. Well, I need to see where they can improve. Like they lost the division. They had, if you won the Titans, it's like all these other games and all these other things, like you were fighting for the first round bye, and now you were the wild card. So that is such a massive rock.
Well, we had such massive injury, but
I mean, you did, but it was also also the offense not producing?
I
Look
mean,
at
we
those
lost
games.
our starting center, and our center was a guy who's only played center this year.
I know, but there's still got to be more than just that. Like you got to have that. Like,
Well, I mean, we had played the most. They even said statistically we had the most different combinations of offensive line because of how many of them were injured.
right? Well, and I get that about the strength and conditioning coach, but
I mean that's why the offense didn't look good if the O line didn't get fixed. I mean, yes, some of the players did improve, like Austin Jackson and stuff, but they did the best they could. But yeah, the offense did look odd at the end of the season. Granted, I don't think we're the team. I don't think the third year is like the end of Mike McDaniel. I don't think Steve Ross is like Jerry Jones and like we're on the hot seat, because we lasted with Joe Philbin and Adam Gase longer than we should have. So
true, but I do think. Well, I mean, there's two things, and one's a coaching thing. Is Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah, I mean, Jim Harbaugh is available, and I know Steve Ross wanted him because Steve Ross went to Michigan, is a fan of Michigan, probably loved him in Michigan. So I don't know if Steve Ross still wants him, and he went from when Tony Soprano was still our coach. So I don't know if he's going to do that same type of stuff again. But we haven't heard anything about that. But that would be legitimately the only reason. But he's legitimately the first head coach that got us to back-to-back playoff games, and this was Tua's like gets better each season. Like statistically, his stats have only gone up each season, and this year he played every game. So like whatever, he's like one of those ones, whatever his flaws are, like he works on them through the off season. So he should be as long if he puts the effort into it, he should be better. And like he probably might throw for like 5,000 yards next season if he threw for 4,600 this season, as long as the offense can stay good beyond September.
Right? How many yards do you think he can get?
Probably over 5,000, just based on the statistical growth with his game.
Yeah, there's definitely a good chance about that.
I mean, he got better statistically each season, so it's just.
I'll be honest with you. It really can't be another 11-6 season where you and one and done in the playoffs.
I mean, 11-6 is fine if we win the division at 11-6.
Yeah, I mean, also not like definitely can't lose a home game in the playoffs if you win the division. So it's like
I mean, each time feels like a step up, because last season we were the 7th seed and we were playing a playoff game. We were playing an away playoff game without our starting quarterback. Now we're playing with our starting. We were the 6th seed playing with our starting quarterback, but we had an injured defense.
Yeah.
So we will get better, and like the Chiefs I think just got lucky playing the worst team in. I think we were one of the worst team, or we were the
second worst team.
Yeah, second worst team. We were the most injured, one of the most injured teams.
I could give you worse because you were the most injured. Like, you weren't the worst because, let me phrase this right. You were the worst team due to injury. The Eagles were the worst team due to coaching.
Yes.
So, like, I guess tied for, like, I guess I would take, I don't know what I would take. Cause
I don't know who was, we were worse because we were injury. The Steelers were worse because of injury, but they just magically got in here. And yeah, the Eagles collapsed. The Eagles just, they got into the playoffs, but then they collapsed at the end there. So they were already in. If more teams could have like had higher winning records, I don't think the Eagles would have got into the playoffs. The Eagles, the Eagles just did a well enough job in the beginning. But with that, I feel that I'm good with. I feel like I'm good with this game. If we want to move to
no, I feel like we only talked about the Dolphins. So the Chiefs, like I don't know what to think. I mean, I feel like it's on the same level. I mean, they won a game that they were supposed to.
Yeah, we were an injured team, and you should have legitimately how good our defense was that we held them to field goals. It probably should have been like a 40-50 something to 7 blowout.
I mean, you were an injured. That's the thing. It's like they're used to the cold, so it's like injured team, cold weather. They didn't they didn't win, so they didn't have a chance at winning, I should say. So I with the Chiefs, like, yeah, they should have scored more. Sorry, I got a lot of thoughts on the Chiefs. It's like I know I made this point on Facebook, but like that whole roughing the passer, there was a hold on Justin Houston. Like I think that was another 3 points there. Did they get an extra? They won what, 26-7?
Yeah.
So I think it could have been easily a 22-7 game, and it was 1 touchdown and 5 field goals. I think that shows what A, your defense can do. B, their offense is still not there. Like they got one because of the penalties. They got 2 touchdowns due to penalty. They felt like it was the Cincinnati game all over again. So I've heard the word going around about being like, it's like, who should we be impressed by? Like they've talked about like press, like was it good? It was exactly what they should have. They won, but I won't say I was impressed. Just like I guess I could also describe it just like the Bills. Actually the Bills, I was a little more impressed because Josh Allen did turn the ball over, and I think that was huge in a playoff game for Josh Allen. So I'm really looking forward to the matchup with the Chiefs and the Bills. But I think it's gonna be a good 3-2 matchup. And if you add it, there's I think there's an equal amount of pressure on both teams. You've got Sean McDermott probably coaching for his job. Josh Allen, the Bills are at home. They want to get that win. But at the same time, all this season, like there was talks about like, it's like, Andy Reid, like, could he get this dynasty? This great, in talks about being like the greatest of all time because Bill Belichick had a few bad seasons. And also the fact and then there's the whole the team wanted this dynasty. They wanted to go back to back. Hasn't been done in 20 years. Like they're in it, and I'm sure they're still thinking about it. And you can't tell me that that was your goal. Like everybody, these teams had some of the same goals. Like these 2 teams, had the goals of winning a Super Bowl. And this is also like, Mahomes is like first road playoff game. So and his receivers aren't catching. So like, did they win the Super Bowl last year? Yeah, but that was a different team. I don't care if a lot of the same pieces are on there. This doesn't feel like the same team. And it's the same thing like the Bills from last year. Like they kind of collapsed. They did the opposite. They struggled in the beginning and then they pushed themselves up. Like they kind of were floundering last year into the playoffs, and the Dolphins held them to a 3-point victory with Skylar Thompson last year in Buffalo.
Right, that's why Ken Dorsey got fired.
Yeah, this team feels way different since Joe Brady took over. So I do think that there's a lot of pressure. I think there's pressure. I think the most pressure is on Sean McDermott, but I do think that there's a lot of pressure on Kansas City to win or to not look bad. They barely won their division, so it's a lot. It's going to be interesting. That's all I gotta say. Like I think it's gonna be. It kind of sucks because for me it's like I wish that was one of the first games because it's like the last one, and like I think that was gonna have the most pressure on that game because of both teams. Every other game is not gonna have as much pressure because some of them are just lower seeds. Some of them are like, oh, we weren't even supposed to be here in the first place, kind of. Some teams were counted out, so. But that's all I have to say about the Chiefs.
Yeah, I feel that the Chiefs will. I don't know what Bills are showing up, so I feel like the Bills and the Chiefs. I feel the Bills have the better advantage here with how well they've been playing. But
yeah, we'll just go into the Bill. We'll just talk about the Bills game now. The Bills Steelers. Bills won. They're playing the Chiefs. You asked her, like you said, like you don't know which Bills team's coming. If the team that came last week shows up, I think that they're going to be fine. Would I have liked for 2 reasons. One, would I have liked few reasons. Here's one side note. Would I have liked them to have played better? Yes, but here's the thing. 2, they played fine. They took the lead early. Did the Steelers come back? Yeah, but they kept the lead and they were able to keep sustaining momentum and points, and they got takeaways, and that's an important for both the Bills to win and to and the Chiefs struggles. Like that really hurts them when you see that when they have a takeaway, like it can really throw them off. And we've seen them lose, and that's the second thing is like we've seen them lose. Like they get flustered when they're behind. Like we know a certain one of our favorite sports guys that loves the Chiefs, but I don't know if he's noticed that they get flustered when they're trying to play from behind. I know they've mentioned he likes to mention other teams and a certain 49ers quarterback that gets flustered when that team comes and plays from behind. But this season in particular, all he's saying about the 49ers, I feels like been about the Chiefs too, because the penalty or whatever, like the Packers game and the Bills game from the regular season, like that's what I remember with the Chiefs. A lot of the, like they just couldn't come, they couldn't come back. And even in your game, you came back, you got 14 points. If they didn't have that one defensive score, 14-14, or you could have been winning by that point, and they didn't show anything that really showed me they could get any points in that second half.
Well, they still got lucky. I will forever say they got lucky that of the bad snap and the ball that just didn't want to fly at the end of our game, which could have totally changed, because we win that game, like that's still winning one more game and totally changes our position. But
without getting too much into it, they did get lucky. I disagree with that. I still look at that play when Tyreek fumbled it, because like I thought forward progress was stopped, and usually it's like if it was a running back, I feel like they would have called it sooner. Like it's an interesting.
They like to give special treatment to their star players, like how there was no timeout called when Patrick's helmet got broken, and that that usually requires a timeout to get the new helmet and stuff. But no, it's Patrick Mahomes. We can stop the entire game.
I was looking for stuff like that with Buffalo. I will say that there was maybe one flag that maybe with the late, but you know what? It wasn't, Josh, I don't know if Josh flopped with the head going back on the slide. The number 16 tackled him when he was sliding, but he was sliding really early. And I think, like if he could, if 16 tried to go over him or something like that and grazed him or something, probably not a penalty, but he landed.
That's the problem.
Like it's, like I'm really trying to be fair here.
That's
like
the problem.
You see a lot of things with you do see the Chiefs have gotten some of those penalties.
Yeah. The problem is that with like sliding like that is that we're trying to protect all the players here, but we're mainly trying to protect the quarterback. But we don't care. But you can't stop. People can't stop their momentum. And then you'll get like the roughing the passer call when I think it was Christian Wilkins who just slightly pushed him,
and they missed the Justin Houston goal.
Yeah. So
but
the refs are so for the Chiefs, except for a minor few games. They've been against the Chiefs this year. That is the difference. But we'll see what happens. Like the Bills played great. Without TJ Watt, the Steelers really didn't have without TJ Watt, and we don't know if I don't know who their offensive coordinator is, but if they can get a better one than Matt Canada and whoever his current one is, I think they would be better with even Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett, and I think they'll figure that out. But they really the Bills won that game because they should have won that game. And the Bills had fantastic, great plays, a ton of them. So the Bills are a strong team, and they're coming in hot. That's why they won the division and stuff.
Yeah, because they were 6-6 at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did come in hot. I mean,
Joe Brady should be a head coaching candidate, and maybe even take over the Bills if they don't win.
That could be a real possibility. But I think, I remember the Broncos game against the Bills. They should have won that one. But you know what? I think it led to what's his name again?
Who? Ken Dorsey.
Getting fired. So I think it worked out for them, honestly. And I just want to say it's going to be a good game. I hope not too many flags. I hope they play. I hope it's a good game. I'm rooting for the Bills, and shockingly, so is John.
I'm not. What was it like the Star Wars? I think episode 9 or episode 8, whatever, the one with General Hux. I'm not rooting for the Bills to win. I need the Chiefs to lose.
Fair.
I'm rooting for the Texans mainly for the AFC.
I mean, the Texans, they got it right now, that underdog team. So, but we'll get into that in a moment. I just want to say, Josh Allen ran great. First, I know some of it was with the Steelers who couldn't tackle. I don't know if that's going to be the same thing with the Chiefs, but Josh Allen's touchdown, he was great. Shakir's touchdown where he got he put his hand and bounced himself back up, pushed himself up off the ground without being down and got into the end zone. The end zone was so great. One of the best plays of the season. It was just there was just a lot of fantastic. The Bills just played a lot of fantastic. The Bills had a lot of fantastic plays. They did great, and I'm excited to see what they can do. And I hope Shakir keep improving because he's really coming up. And I hope it's not just Gabe Davis had one game and a couple of games here and there. I'd like to see Shakir.
I could
be a
see.
solid number 2.
I don't know about like with all the controversy with Diggs, like if he's staying or not, but they might just you could run maybe just with Davis and Shakir and get someone and maybe get someone else.
They could pay for T. Higgins. They got the money.
Or AJ Brown. He's on. I think I don't know if he's happy or not.
Trade Brown for Diggs. So let Buffalo throw in a little extra. I think it's a fair trade.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like obviously the only thing I can really say about the Steelers is they were really missing TJ Watt. I don't know if they really ran it enough like they usually do, but
I don't think they were in a they were put in a position where they couldn't run it.
Yeah.
They like to run it, but how the Bills play beats out how the Steelers like to play.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, like, I don't understand that whole fumble that didn't get called a fumble because with Fryer move, the helmet touching. I don't know. That was weird. I'm glad it didn't affect anything.
I think it was weird for them, and they didn't know what to do either.
Yeah, but didn't really affect the game. I mean, those are the worst penalties are when they really affect the game. Like when you go back and
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I know that I can think of one in the Dallas. Like that one didn't affect the game. Truthfully, like the Dolphins didn't win or come close, so the non-holding call didn't make a difference. But they would have just replayed third down. So who knows what would have happened there? But it's annoying, really. All it comes down to. So well, we're talking about penalties and injury, and I know there's been injuries, but like one of the best games, or arguably actually the best, because of how back and forth it went, or at least how it felt. Even though I don't think there was a back and forth lead change, but the Lions and the Rams, that was a good game.
Mm-hmm. That was probably the best game of the weekend and was one of the biggest highlights of the week. Like going into it, it was like one of the top looking one into it that turned out to be one of the best. Just like how I said the Dolphins Chiefs is going to be like a shit show, turned out to be a shit show.
That arguably was the worst game.
It was one of the worst. One of the worst because you had to have Peacock to watch it though.
Sam Laporta played.
Yes.
That was great. I know the score wasn't back and forth, but like every time one scored, the other scored. It was a 24-23 game, and there's some questionable calls that I'm surprised McVay didn't try and kick the field goal because at the end, because you weren't really playing for field, you were playing for field position. Like they just wanted to round out the clock. They didn't care if they scored again.
Mm-hmm.
You get a field goal even if it's a long one. You got a chance,
right?
So I don't agree with that decision there. But Puka broke rookie records, like 181 yards for a rookie in a playoff game. Like that was amazing. Sam Laporta got a touchdown. Gibbs got a touchdown. Puka got a touchdown. Like that's the 3 rookies in a playoff game getting touchdowns.
Well, I mean, they're just great players that came out this season.
Like it's going to be exciting to see their future.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Lions, like it's great that the Lions broke their playoff win drought. I've seen things like the last time they won like a playoff game, like the Madden graphics were like on the Super Nintendo, and like text messaging didn't exist, and so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Dolphins have the longest playoff win drought, which will hopefully end next year, but not moving back forward to my team. Let's stay on the Lions. I think I had them as like my NFC team, and I think they're still going to go far. And they get to play in the matchup of former Miami Dolphins interim head coaches.
Right.
Because Dan Campbell and Todd Bowles both were interim head coaches. But on the bright side, at least I can take solace that Todd Bowles was the Jets head coach, and they got rid of him, and now they're probably feeling sad about that.
Right. It was good to see Jared Goff get the win and the city of Detroit get the win. I like Matthew Stafford, but I mean, and it was a close one, so
I think if the Lions win or something, this is going to turn out to be the most like balanced trade ever. Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff, like,
and still arguably you could say that the Lions win because they got a lot of draft picks and turned some of the draft picks into those players.
Into a lot of starting good players. So
because Gibbs, that was the Rams pick. That was the number one. That was their number one pick in that trade because that was like the 8th. It was one of the top 10 picks, I think.
Yeah.
And because I know right there.
Right. So, but I think the Rams will be back. Like, I mean, you have Puka and you have Kyron Williams. You have some fantastic great weapons. You just build up more on the defense and
right. DeMarcus Robinson was coming up. I know he came from the Chiefs, but like, it's funny. One thing I just want to say about the Chiefs is like Marcus Robinson was a Chief, but like I don't think I think they undervalued some of these Chiefs receivers the way that the receivers are playing right now.
Yeah, Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson. I remember them like during this when they won the Super Bowl and stuff. Like the first time and stuff, they were really good. These were like random other wide receivers that were just really good.
At least for that system. I don't know what happened to Brandon Pringle, but
Byron Pringle, I forget what team he went to.
Yeah, but you know, it's like
Demarcus Robinson actually went to the Ravens last year, but still would have been they got rid of too much. Like, and I definitely think Eric Bieniemy being gone is a key factor.
Yes, but just saying, you know, sometimes wide receivers you just need the right coaching, and it's like you've got Kupp and Atwell and and Robinson and Puka. Like that's great. I get well soon, Tyler Higbee. I was one of those questionable. Like it wasn't a penalty, but it's only because only so much you can hit it. You can't aim for the head. Like there's only so many ways you can tackle nowadays. So like it's rough. But that's a whole conversation for the off season about penalties and changes and stuff like that. So I think we're good on that game.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Rams will be fighting for the NFC West next season. So
oh yeah, especially if they get they get a first round draft pick.
Right.
Speaking of first round draft picks, there are two teams that faced each other that has the other's first round draft pick. I think they do in this coming season, and traded many of their first round draft picks to get players like with the Texans versus the Browns. They got Will Anderson Jr. and CJ Stroud. They got CJ with their own pick, but they traded up I believe they traded up the Browns draft pick from last season to get up to and they gave up theirs this year for Will Anderson Jr. It looks like and it paid off. Man, did the Texans like just dominate.
Yep, they destroyed the Browns.
45-14?
Yep.
Was there a pick six in that one too?
I think there was defensive ones, yeah.
I mean,
there was two pick sixes.
Okay, I was gonna say we'll get more into it later, but if like besides CJ and Jordan Love looking identical, like those games felt very, very close to each other, and watching them back to back days. But now because the Texans draft pick went to I believe Arizona, and like they traded their own, so they've given the Arizona Cardinals because of where they are a later draft pick, and given themselves an earlier draft pick because they eliminated the Browns, who they still have the 2024 first round draft pick of theirs. So they are continuing in the playoffs. The Browns get nothing in the first round, I believe, and because they won, they gave themselves a better draft pick. That does not happen. I don't know if that's ever happened. I don't even know how to look that up. I might have to tweet one of those like Ian Rappaport or one of those like experts or something to see if they happen to know if that's ever happened before, because it's so wild that I had to say anything.
Right, like Texans get better, Browns get screwed, and the Browns shouldn't. And the Browns continue to regret getting Deshaun Watson, and the Texans continue to love making that trade.
God, what was his name? Nick, the GM.
Casario.
Casario? Is it Casario?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Casario or Casarian, but yeah, he's gotten so lucky. He's like, hey, give me, like, I'm gonna get it right. Like he had because he had the David Culley and Lovie Smith. By the way, if they win the Super Bowl, they have to erect a statue for Lovie Smith to help, because he won that game against the Colts last year at the end of the season. Because it basically took the choice out of their hand. And who knows if they would have picked Bryce Young. We really no idea how that would have gone. But thanks to Lovie Smith, they were guaranteed the number. They were given the number 2. They basically were like, what? They get seconds. They get the second pick. It's like they don't have a choice. I mean, they could have taken Anthony Richardson, but there were a clear 1 and 2, and it's like you got to thank Lovie Smith for that one.
Right. Now, granted, we don't know if they would have been successful with Bryce Young. Like, did Bryce Young not be successful because of the bad situation there was, or is CJ this good, or is CJ in a good situation, or would Bryce also succeed in CJ's situation?
We can't really get too much into the past.
Yeah,
like,
too
what. Do a whole podcast on the last of the David Tepper years of of the Panthers. But all I'm going to say is look at Baker Mayfield since getting out. Like after the Cleveland years, there was no real great coaching. There's no structure. There's nothing that there's no winning culture there. That and then you see what he did in LA for those few games and what he's done with the Buccaneers. That explains a lot. So I think Bryce Young's just in a bad situation, and I'm hoping they can fix it for his sake. If not, I think he deserves a second chance elsewhere.
So it's not just look at Baker Mayfield, and I know they're backups, but every quarterback that was on the Panthers last year is on a playoff team this year.
I mean, they're all backups. I mean, PJ Walker did get a win, but I won't say they're all backups because Baker's, he's in the divisional round now. Spoiler alert. PJ Walker, he won a couple. I think he won a game or two, but he helped. He was one of the 4 quarterbacks that got them there. And Sam Darnold, I mean, solid backup for what they're trying to do. So
they're all in better situations after leaving the Panthers. So Bryce could be in a better situation if he leaves, or if David Tepper figures it out.
Honestly, if I'm Bryce Young, if it doesn't get going, I just somehow demand a trade. Like I don't want to finish if it doesn't get better. If they don't hire some kind of competent, like we are really off topic here because we should not be talking about the Panthers in the playoffs one. But the last thing, he should really demand a trade if they don't see if they're just not an organization that's gonna do, like there are some joke organizations, and right now the Panthers feel like they're going to be the new Browns, Jaguars team that's always going to be drafting first. Like the same thing with like the Commanders, like until like they get something in there. Like they feel like the joke of the league, the butt of the league.
Well, new ownership can hurt or help you, and I think the new ownership will help the Commanders, but I don't know. David Tepper needs to get his act together here.
Right? I mean, just to make a real quick comparison, like I know some Broncos fans are upset with Sean Payton. We needed that culture. We need that culture in there. The ownership needed somebody that knew winning ways. And honestly, what are the Saints going to be in the next 5 years without Sean Payton? What were they before Sean Payton? They were a joke. They were like the Panthers, where they are now. Like without the they were like the Panthers. They were at the bottom of the division. I remember the Aints, like seeing videos of them and just seeing stuff like the bags, and there's nobody caring for the Saints. I mean, I think they kind of were floating back up with I think Aaron Brooks back in the
Aaron Brooks
2000s.
was who I remember.
But other than that, like they were one of the bottom teams. Like I remember getting some of the teams that you just didn't really care for, that you didn't really want to get like a little plastic helmet when we were kids. Like I didn't want to get the Saints, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Bengals, and I want to say the Colts too before Peyton Manning. I mean, I was 12 when Peyton Manning joined the league, so I'm thinking like from like the age of 5 to 11. Like I know we were young when we got some of those, and the Colts were one of those teams that just bad for that. I just don't remember good stuff from that team in the early 90s. So so I think that sounds about it for some of for those teams. Everybody else was like either mediocre or trying to improve, but yeah. We'll see what the Saints become, but I think that's what the Panthers are going to be if they don't really. They need to get a leader of men. They need to get. They need to nail this. Who's been a head coach.
They need to nail this head coaching candidate, and they need to let them have the freedom, like to they need less micromanaging from the owner.
Right now, we were back on the Texans, and we'll talk about them. So I don't know what else to really say about the Texans other than they just performed so well. Like they are a fun team to watch. Like the D'Amico Ryans, I've said for years there has not been an Ohio State quarterback that why would I trust an Ohio State quarterback? Finally, we've got one that graduated from Ohio State. I know Joe Burrow was there, but like counting Jalen Hurts, kind of like he came from do you count Jalen Hurts as an Alabama quarterback? I mean, yeah, he played there for a good chunk of the season. I can understand that, but Joe Burrow did not. I don't remember Ohio State quarterback Joe Burrow. He was like on the bench and had a transfer. So,
But yeah. So there's, I don't really count like Joe Burrow like that. Joe Burrow like that. I don't think he counts himself like that. I think it's
No,
really what I think it's really what the quarterback counts themselves as.
That's true. But as far as anything else, the only thing that sucks is I forget. I know Tank Dell got hurt earlier in the season, but Noah Brown, I think he got on IR, so they're gonna they've got some up and coming wide receivers. I mean, you still got Robert Woods and you got Nico Collins, but I think it's gonna be a tough game with the Ravens this week. But I still like CJ Stroud. I want to see what he's got in the divisional round, but I'm happy they made it here. They were definitely counted out. I'm not counting anybody out this week. And they're way ahead of schedule for a rookie head coach, or first time head coach and a rookie quarterback. So I'm just excited to see what the rest of this, they have more than this game and next season too. So not that they're in it, but Jaguars are really gonna have to step up their game. Like, I want to see some really good matchups between CJ and Trevor, because they could be great. But anything else on the Texans before we move to the Browns? Because I don't believe we really talked about much on the Browns.
Well, there wasn't much to talk about, but
you aren't wrong.
But no, the Texans are doing fine. They're, like you said, ahead of schedule. But I mean, to be fair, the goal is to be great when you start out all the time. So like,
well, some teams have a rebuilding year. This definitely was one of those ones where if they went 500, or even they just needed to have not a top 10 draft pick, and I think that it would have been a successful season.
Right. I don't know what exactly was their expectations. So, but
to basically establish CJ Stroud as the quarterback for the Houston Texans, and they've gone above and beyond that. They've made names for their wide receivers, I feel.
Well, I meant what the team's expectations of, not what like we are expectations.
No, that's what I was saying. I think that was their expectation, was just to establish CJ Stroud. I don't know if winning the division was a first year goal. Like, it's a hope, but I couldn't realistically see that as a goal going in to a franchise that's been, this is a great turnaround after the last few years they've had. So I just couldn't see that as a goal where, like, same thing with the Packers. Like, oh man, they were just making sure Jordan Love was the guy for the next few years. And we'll talk more about the Packers here in a moment, but that's what I feel like they both had. It's funny, they both had that similar goal, just making sure their quarterback this was legit. Like, let's get him good for the years to come. They accomplished that goal. The Packers were a little wobbly there for a little bit, but like both their next few seasons, I'm really excited to see where they go from. I'd love a Super Bowl between the Texans and the Packers.
Well, the other thing the important thing was that Devin Singletary, the more usage out of him helped win the game. And, we've said, well, that's why Ken Dorsey doesn't have a job out not using the running backs in Buffalo, because he really should have been. Yeah, he really should have been used way more.
Yeah, I don't know when he was, how long he was the offense coordinator, but they're looking like a different team throughout half the season. But honestly, I know we said it earlier in the show. I said it about, for the most part, with the exception of a game or two, the Bills looked like that same team from last season at the end, where they barely made it past the Dolphins and got decimated, and they just, by the Bengals. Like, I felt they got decimated. Like, I don't think they were going to win the game where DeMar Hamlin went down. They just didn't look like the team that they are now. And that even shows when they lost to the Jets in overtime, even in the opener. Like, Aaron Rodgers went down. Like, that could have been a momentum. Like, I mean, they still got the 2 seed, but like, I just think about the stuff that if the Bills had done better,
the Bills
they could have been the 1 seed. They very much could have.
The Bills easily could have been the 1 seed.
But gotten off topic again. Anything else on the Texans? I know you were mentioning Devin Singletary, and I agree with you.
Yeah, no, that's about it. I don't know what to say about the Browns because of how their performance wasn't that great, and we only really went on about Dolphins because they were my team. I mean, there wasn't much to say about them. Anyways, years about like these losing teams.
They were injured.
Teams. Like, they were injured. And
well, no, I meant about the Dolphins. The Browns we could actually talk about.
The Browns were technically injured at spots. I mean, Myles Garrett hasn't been the same since you hurt him, since the Broncos hurt him.
You're not wrong. Like they actually, like I remember seeing that stat and seeing like, wow,
so
they knocked him out from like Defensive Player of the Year status. Like he's been like sometimes you don't need to play through the injury. Maybe you need to just rest and he can be a better player for the long haul. I know that they were kind of a bubble playoff team at that point, so I get wanting to play, but no, you're right. The Myles Garrett had been, I guess he lost his form. I don't want to say form, but some sort of mentality with maybe the injury.
I don't know about mentality, but he might have been more difficult to play through the pain.
That's kind of what I was leaning towards when I say mentality. Like if your body's hurting, your head might not be 100% being like, you can do this, and you're trying to get your brain to do that.
I think that's like more of a mental state than a mentality, but
I don't know the actual difference between
well, mentality is like your focus, like your mentality feels like why you're doing this, like the mindset you're in. Your mental state is trying to process all that information.
Maybe we need to create another word in the English language. Some of that. You're not. I mean, I get it.
Because mentality like just feels different, and this feels like you're getting off topic.
We have
on topic, anyways. But mentality is different than mental state, and like your mentality doesn't change just because of pain, but your mental state changes because of pain.
I get it, but I also think like your mentality can change if you're like there's only so much that your body can change your mentality. I do feel like that. Like pain can change your outlook and maybe somewhat your mentality. But I get what you're saying too. Like or at least it changes your mantra. Anyways,
I mean mentality is like your way of thinking, and mental state is like how you're thinking right now. And it's like I feel like your way of thinking doesn't change because of like your mentality can stay the same, but the pain disrupts your thoughts and your focus. The pain doesn't shift your beliefs and how you feel about yourself. Is what I was feeling.
See, and that's kind of what I'm saying is that I actually do think it interrupted some of his mentality, but I'm probably just going through I'm just thinking from my own experiences. Pain changes your can change your mentality.
Pain can. I'm just saying, but I'm saying I think he still was. I think his focus didn't shift because of pain, but his playing did shift because of the pain.
No,
that's the difference I was trying to get with Myles Garrett is that I think he was still mentally locked in, but he wasn't. But the pain shifted how he played.
I feel like we're trying to say some of the same things, but we're using different words, and both can be right. But yeah, I mean, not that it was all on Myles Garrett. I mean, it was Joe Flacco through what, 2 pick sixes? So
there were a lot of interceptions. There was a lot more problems with Joe Flacco, who I don't know. He had a lot of wins in the playoffs, so I guess they weren't ready for the Texans, and they beat the Texans without C.J. Stroud, so they might have underprepared, but who knows?
I mean, they had that was the Amari Cooper game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They probably looked at a lot of film, the Texans, to get that one, to get ready for him. The other thing is like that. I remember seeing that Joe Flacco with the Broncos.
Joe Flacco might still have, with the right coach, might still have some left in him, but I feel like
I don't think they all season.
No, I think he'll be a good backup. I think that he might stay a backup for the Browns, but
that would be fair. I think that I could see him do that. But
they need something better than Deshaun Watson.
Well, they're stuck with him for another year. I think that I don't know. Like I question how the Broncos get out of theirs, out of the Russell Wilson thing. I don't know how you get out of the Deshaun Watson thing contract.
Honestly, I think there's some creative accounting that you can do to get out of it, and I think that's a lot of fans don't realize is that a good GM can do a lot of creative accounting. Like they only see the straight out numbers, but if you look at stuff like I've seen Chris Greer work miracles for the Dolphins cap space. We're over the cap. We're going to be under the cap like that magically because of the wizardry he does. So it's they have more options open to them than like on the surface. Like I think it's like an iceberg. Like free agency and stuff and contracts are an iceberg. iceberg, and we only see the surface level, and there's a whole lot more to it.
My only pushback about that is, unlike the Russell Wilson trade, there's no more draft capital. They can't move off of him when the Texans have their number 1 draft pick this year on top of their after they still got one. I just don't know how you do that. Like, it's gonna be his last year. Deshaun's gonna have to have his peak, well, not peak Texans years, but at least the playoff peak Texans years, because you've said in the past,
his best statistics was during a losing season,
which he was probably playing garbage time because that was his rookie year.
No, it was his last year. It was his last year before he left. It was his last year with Texans.
Oh, okay, so that's when he wanted that.
They were good
contract
in his rookie year.
Okay, well, he got hurt in that rookie. Yeah, I remember that now.
But still, the other caveat is that there are ways to creatively account.
Yeah.
Do you choose to do them or to complete other story? And
I just don't know how you're gonna sell that to your fan base. That's all.
Right? I don't know how you sell things to the fan bases, because some of them are just never happy. Like, well, honestly, if you want to go into another game, speaking about that we have to talk about, speaking about a fan base that's never happy, is the Philadelphia Eagles.
There's not a lot to talk about with the Eagles. I think we're good on the Browns. So, what to talk about the Eagles? They fell apart. There's the coaches don't have the loss. I feel like they lost the locker room. Like, they're just not playing for the coaches anymore. Like, there's nothing there that tells me.
I don't know what they weren't playing for anything. Like, they coasted into this. Like, they went 10-1 and then only won one more game.
And they barely beat the Giants. That if they started Tyrod Taylor, I keep hearing it both ways, and I just don't know what it is. But if they started Taylor in that game instead of him just being in the second half, I think the Giants would have won that game. So,
yeah, I mean, Tommy DeVito was on a hot streak at the time, so But we don't need to go on another tangent about teams that aren't in the playoffs,
right? But the Eagles, that's really it. The Eagles puttered out whatever. I don't know. They ran out. The word I was thinking of is futtering. They just the car just didn't basically want to go anymore. They were inching by and not playing well. I'm sure I'm thinking of another word too, but there's not really much left to say about the Eagles until we find out what their future holds. But we know right now currently Mike McCarthy's coming back, and we'll get into their game later. But I saw the team still playing for Mike McCarthy despite being down like 30 points. I did not see that with Nick Sirianni or any of the coaches with the Eagles. When it got out of hand, I didn't see them playing. I didn't see them playing anymore.
They scored that one touchdown
that looked really good,
and then the final nail in the coffin to the Eagles season was the tush push was stopped.
Right? They got the penalty. They took the points off the board. They decided we'll go for 2 because they were down by. They didn't even need to go by. They were down by like a score. I think it was 16-9 at that point. So like you said, tush push got denied, which was great because that's exactly the ending to
it was the most poetic ending to the Eagles season.
It was, and that wasn't even the end of the game. The worst bit.
They did score afterwards, so it was the poetic.
Well, they got 2 more points on offense. For
the other team.
So. But that was it. It was like after, and then the
Buccaneers
the
them.
safety and the path to the intentional grounding call. So it was perfect. It was just like I don't know what's wrong with Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is probably hurting. Is probably playing in pain. He doesn't look the same as he did when they were playing at a high level. They stopped using DeAndre Swift and AJ Brown for whoever knows throughout the season. They used to be like these monsters. Like AJ Brown was at the same level as Tyreek, going for like the same amount of yards, and then
they stopped throwing it.
Yeah, they stopped throwing it to him. He still ended up as I think the 4th receiver, but still he should have been higher than 4th.
Right. AJ didn't play in this game. I think he was hurt at against the Giants last week. But they used DeAndre Swift twice. Like, I saw him get a good run. I'm like, oh, is that DeAndre Swift? I was like shocked. I'm like, oh, they know how to use him. He got like a 9-10 yard run. Like I think he got a first down, and then I stopped seeing him.
He had 10 carries for 34 yards.
And what was
one of those, and his longest run was 17 yards. So half of those yards was on one play out of 10 runs.
So I get it. They stopped the defense, but the defense stopped the offense. Other than DeAndre Swift and that one pass to Devonta Smith,
he was their highlight.
That was the only play.
He had 148 yards, and I know one of them was 55 yards, but still.
I mean, he had a pretty good game, even outside of that one, but out of that the 54-yard, because that was the long one that I thought that led into the touchdown that I thought was gonna really spark the Eagles, and it did for I think 2 plays.
Looking at this statistically, it just gets worse. I'm looking at the game. Jalen Hurts was only sacked 3 times, no interceptions.
Yeah.
And apparently they recovered 2 fumbles, and they only scored 9 points. And they have like a receiver with over 100 yards receiving. Like, you got defensively stopped, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad. The Tampa Bay didn't fumble the ball. They just recovered their own fumbles. That was it.
Oh, okay.
The Eagles recovered their own fumbles. That was it. My bad. I can't read a stat page.
It's all good. So it didn't really. So thank goodness they recovered their own. So
yeah, they lost because then it would have been like what 45 to 9,
something like that. But it was 32-9 was bad enough.
There was no turnover. Yeah, the Buccaneers did not lose the ball at all.
But I think we're good with the Eagles because there's nothing there. We probably talked about them way too much. I'm going to say the Buccaneers look good. Baker first, Tampa Bay quarterback, because there's only been 2 Super Bowl winning ones, and one of them was Tom Brady and the other was Brad Johnson. And the only other guy who made it to the playoffs, I think, was Jameis Winston. I don't really know any other Tampa Bay quarterback, but Baker was the first one to throw for I think 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or something in the game, right?
Yeah.
Did he have 3 touchdowns?
Yes, he was baking. This game. I was going to say, I know they called it Tampa Bay, but can we start calling them the Baconeers?
If they win a Super Bowl, yeah. Or even if they make it the championship round, sure.
The NFC, so I want to say, as I said, whoever the NFC South team was, which was the Buccaneers, was going to beat whichever NFC East team they were playing, which was the Eagles. And I knew like the Buccaneers could beat the Eagles because, the Eagles, just slumped into here. And Baker played really well. Rashad White continues to do excellent, and they have some of the best wide receivers around. Even these new, like David Moore and Trey Palmer, are coming up there on top of you already have Evans and Godwin, and Cade Otton is coming up there as a tight end.
Right, he's had a pretty decent season. Like he was a little off and on, but when he played well, he played well. Like I know in fantasy production he was doing pretty well. So I'm excited to see. Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. I've said it before. He will be like he's like the number 2 wide receiver I would take ever, and the only one that's beating him is Jerry Rice. If I didn't have Jerry Rice and Mike Evans in their prime, that's exactly who I want with Peyton Manning as my quarterback.
Right, like they have it was a nice game of like spreading the ball around. I mean, I know like Trey Palmer only had it once, but you only need it once when you run 56 yards for a touchdown.
Right, that was their running back.
No, Trey
no,
Palmer.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, I didn't know who that was. So, but I don't know who the backup running back there is. I know that there's or number 2 running back.
I know Trey Palmer ran the ball, but I don't. He's a running back.
Yeah. I know. I'm hoping if Rashid
Chase Edmonds is the.
Oh, okay. If Rashid White, right?
Rashad,
man, there's a lot of that. One day I'll get their names. I don't know who the Rashid is. But
I only know Rashid Shaheed.
That's probably who I'm thinking of. Like there's Rashid.
Yeah, Rashid Rice, Rashid Shaheed, and Rashad White.
Yeah, and they're all doing great. They all have. They all got production. They make plays. So it's like you're not like I'd get confused if the 3 Jalen's on the Dolphins were if they were pronounced differently.
They're all spelled differently.
I know that's exactly my point. Like I would mix them up if their names were close. But I'll try and get it. But Rashad White, right?
Yeah.
I hope he has a breakout game. I could see him going off against the Lions. I think he's I feel like he's a possible like X factor. Like it can be a back and forth game, but they need to match the Lions run game. But I'm just excited to see this Buccaneers Lions game. So
yeah, so there's the battle of the former Miami Dolphins interim head coaches
and former #1 overall draft picks. I think it's only the second time I think in history of them playing a playoff game. Or
it's like, at least in the bright side, thank goodness #1 picks weren't these weren't former Miami Dolphins quarterbacks.
I forget how many times #1s have done it. Because I know like last week was one. This is another matchup with Goff and Baker, but they're both on different teams now. So that
it might be one of the first battle of #1 draft pick quarterbacks that are on different teams
and not being traded for each other, because last week was. But it's another exciting #1 matchup. We'll see who wins this one. And anything else with the Bucks and the Eagles?
I'm just happy for the Bucks that they continue forward, and I can't believe the NFC South made it further than the NFC East.
So that's the last game we got to talk about, right?
Mainly because it's this other NFC East team that I can't believe lost.
Right. Well, first, I knew there was a shot with the Packers because I said Jordan Love in our prediction show. So I've been hoping for him. I don't know if it was like I was hoping for him for a couple of reasons. One, I think he went through like a rough time, and I wanted to see him succeed. Two, I wanted to see him succeed so that I would not like another like 15 years of a quarterback that did they get I really think they got a third quarterback in a row. So I hope they win more than one Super Bowl. He will become like the greatest one since like Bart Starr, right? He will be like the second greatest Packers like quarterback. So
I think it comes down to how far they go this season, and B is the right letter for this because they would go. I think they'll go as far as Joe Barry's defense. Like, will Joe Barry's defense be a problem? Like, will that cause some issues like getting forward in the playoffs here? And will a new defensive or will they keep Joe Barry, or will they get a new defensive coordinator? That'll help like Jordan Love, I think, going forward.
It really depends on what happens in this game, because if they play like Dallas has talent on, they stopped Cooks, they stopped CeeDee Lamb. They didn't really stop what was his name? The tight end, Ferguson.
Yeah. Well, they were.
But if they can't stop George Kittle, that might be a problem. So
I think Dallas just wasn't on the right page, and I don't know what Dallas's issues were. I think just Green Bay's defense just took advantage of a bad situation. So that's really what it comes down to. Better lucky than good.
Agreed. I think we'll see. I'm excited for the game, the Packers versus the 49ers, but before we get like too far and in advance, I just want to say, like, unlike the Eagles, the Cowboys came back and showed up in the second half. Like, they kept fighting. I'll give you that. I'll give them that. I don't know if they would have really gotten that touchdown at the end with the penalty. They didn't miss it. The refs missed penalty and whatnot, but it did get a little closer.
Yeah, statistically, like they couldn't do anything in the first half, and then like statistically, like CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup are over 100 yards. And
I forgot about Michael Gallup.
And Jake Ferguson's at like 93 yards, as we said, but
and had what, 2 touchdowns?
I think so.
But
3 touchdowns for Ferguson.
Oh wow, must have been the first half one. But they gotta be careful if George Kittle can do that. But my point I was saying was the Cowboys, they didn't stop fighting. They kept playing, and other than that, like I know there was they didn't call the penalty, which could have been 27-0. So I know that the Packers were kind of getting close. Like the Cowboys were coming up in score and getting closer, but realistically, they took out Jordan Love for a little bit. I think that it ended like 40. What was the final score?
48-32. So it was only like.
I really think it would have been a 48-25 game realistically. I mean, there's nothing that really stopped that pick six. So maybe the score was a little closer at the end, but the Cowboys just came so unprepared in that first half that really, really cost them.
Yeah, they just can't be. They just are lactose intolerant, I guess, when it comes to the cheeseheads.
Yeah.
Something like, and let's
I just want to say about that pardon the poop humor here, but if you would think that if they really were lactose intolerant, that Tony Pollard would have been able to get some runs in.
No, they couldn't stop. No, what it was they couldn't stop the runs from Aaron Jones.
I see what you see. Yeah, we're both thinking the rough.
I wanted to mention Aaron Jones is like 118 yards rushing
and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns.
Man, 2 players with 3 touchdowns each. That's
They had good fantasy days.
They did.
But yeah,
you gotta make that thing. We gotta make this Chiefs thing a meme. Like, there's still plenty of time for Packers memes and Cowboys, and it's, I feel a little silly that like we both made. I think we both made good ones.
Yep. We've knocked ourselves off track.
I thought we were doing the King of the Hill bit. Yep.
Yep.
Those guys would be so disappointed.
Yeah, the King of the Hills, they're Texans fans instead of Cowboys fans.
Not Hank Hill.
Not Hank Hill.
Bobby would be.
That's a King of the Hill episode.
Oh, it so is. Can we write on the new season? I want to do this episode.
Bobby.
If they've grown up, it's not going to be as fun. But I'd like maybe a flashback episode. That could be fun. If anybody that knows somebody that connected the King of the Hill, please, can you, we'd like to just help write an episode, please.
Right.
Anyways.
The Cowboys sure had pocket sand in their eyes because they didn't get in that first half.
I didn't see that first half coming. So, anything else to really add? I don't feel like the Cowboys are keeping Mike McCarthy. And you know what? Like, my instant reaction was like, oh, he's so getting fired. Like, how are you not killing? How are you not calling? I mean, they're probably killing themselves. Like, they're in their head. Like Jerry must have been thinking like, oh, how do I keep him? So but he's keeping him. So I don't know how the thought was not calling Bill Belichick right away. But honestly, thinking about it, it's like, I don't know how Jerry and Bill would have coexisted. So that would have been really interesting. So I think that's why they kept Mike McCarthy, and he's got 1 year left on his contract. And honestly, I think if it's the same story next year, that's it. That's it. New coach.
They probably just didn't want to deal with paying him out. So and he's done good in the regular season, and he's proven, since he has a Super Bowl win, he's proven he can get to the Super Bowl. Granted, it's been forever, but they just need to get a few more weapons. And if Trayvon Diggs is healthy, and you have Diggs and Bland and if you keep Stephon Gilmore, I don't know his contract situation. I don't know if they signed him for more than 1 year. So
we'll see if he wants to keep playing too.
Yeah, so. That too. But that is not a secondary I want to deal with. And maybe you might get a different defensive coordinator because Dan Quinn gets hired, but you might do better.
Mm-hmm. They definitely got to do better.
The question is, I don't know if they're keeping Dak or not, but...
Did they trade for a defensive coordinator? Jim Schwartz.
No. Get Ejiro away from... Ejiro Evero with this defense? Yes. They're not going to lose a playoff game.
Actually, you know what? That's an interest. You made me... We were talking about defensive coordinators. You know, one thing nobody's mentioned, and I think he had besides Jonathan Gannon on the defense, wasn't Vic Fangio part of the Eagles last year?
He was the defensive consultant, yeah.
That could explain a lot too, honestly. I wonder how much, he wasn't calling plays, but if he was assisting, helping, talking to that defense and stuff, like, we know the power of Vic Fangio and a Vic Fangio defense. I know we said at the beginning of the show, but like, you look at some of Mahomes' numbers and you look at how much that defense was trying to do stuff with a bunch of backups. They played pretty darn good. Not to really say more on the Dolphins, but But that, I think Vic Fangio, somebody, and it's definitely not Matt Patricia, but a veteran defensive coordinator with the Eagles. I really think that's what they need to aim for. And the new, I think we're going to get new play callers on both sides of the offense and defense, but I think they need to go after some kind of veteran for the Eagles. DC, even if they don't, if they keep or fire Nick Sirianni, it's got to go that way and not Matt Patricia.
Right? Like, I don't even know where Vic Fangio is going to end up next year, because people have talked about he's kind of always followed Jim Harbaugh.
That's a good point. And one other thing, Matt Patricia may not have been the problem. It might have just been they changed and they were following the size playbook, and he didn't really have his stuff. So who knows for sure?
It takes a while to get into a defensive scheme. That's why both our teams earlier this season, defenses were problems, like, because Miami's defense had a hard time holding people and Denver's defense had a hard time stopping people. They didn't find their groove in Vance Joseph and Vic Fangio's systems till later, and then they were hard to score on.
Right, and Vance Joseph is one of those ones that but we should talk more about this in the coaching one.
Yeah.
I'll just say, like, should he get another year? He was kind of up and down, but do I really think that defense wants to change teams again? No, they're a very talented defense. Keep the best that what worked with Vance Joseph. I don't even know if I said that right. Keep the best of Vance Joseph stuff and keep Vance Joseph and let them work off what they did this season, and it could solidify next season and we could be a top 10 defense again.
Easily.
But other than that, I think we're good with the wild card round. Super wild card weekend is over.
Right now, it's just normal defensive, or not yet defensive, the divisional round. Normal divisional round, not super divisional round, because the super ends till the Super Bowl.
Yep. I do think that the divisional round, I know I'm just playing off your words here, but divisional, there should be some good defense in this round. These are some of the teams that have the best defenses in the league still remaining, with the exception of, like we said, maybe not, the Lions are kind of, and same thing with the Packers. So we'll see. But the other 6 teams that good